this shirt might come off halfway through. It's easier.
Evening and welcome to the May 7th regular Town Council meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Phillips.
Present.
Councilor Sims.
Present.
Councilor Wilder Cross.
Present.
Councilor Pratt.
Present.
Councilor Gagnon.
Present.
Councilor Lavoy.
Present.
Councilor Siegel.
Present.
And now we'll do the acceptance of the April 2nd regular Town Council meeting. Is there a motion? Second. Second by Councilor Wilder Cross. All those in favor? 7 yeas. And now we're going to move on to open public communications. This is a time where people can get up to the podium, state your name and address, and speak about something that's not on the agenda tonight. And if you will give everybody about 5 minutes. We do have a timer, so if you could keep your comments brief. Yep, go right ahead, go right up.
You said address, right?
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Hannah Hamblin. I'm here to speak on behalf of my dad. So I'm gonna go with his address, 26 Hamblin Road, Gorham, Maine. So like I said, I'm speaking on behalf of Charlie Hamblin. He lives in Gorham, and he wanted me to speak with you about the proposed Gorham Connector project. So from here on out, I am a early 60s man. All right. So, Wikipedia defines progress as movement towards a refined, improved, or otherwise desired state. It defines activity as something done as an action or a movement. Although we hear from the MTA that the proposed highway connector is progress, it feels like activity to me. The information provided by the MTA online and at the March 25th meeting relies on pre-COVID data for the volume of traffic, accidents, the changes that the extender will make, the pollution impacts, and much of the other information they were able to provide. That was done in 2012, if I recall. At some point in the past, apparently, the Gorham Town Council voiced support for the proposed connector, although I'm unsure of the year or the members of the board at the time. Today, the current town council has a golden opportunity to review this proposal with the citizens of Gorham and either gain support or hear our concerns about the project. You should not let this opportunity pass you by. Having lived in Gorham for most of my life, I know a lot of people. I've asked around, and I'm still looking to find a person who does support the connector. Like all issues, there are people on both sides, and I know that all voices should be heard, with a well-thought-out consensus winning the day. Your evaluation of the extender should include the best data available that independent sources have analyzed. Only then should the political and emotional aspects of the situation contribute to the final decision. Reversing this process and letting emotions and politics make the decision without the proper data and analysis is a disservice to us all. Talking about the 2012 study, I think. Recently, I rode in a chairlift at Sunday River with a total stranger. We started chatting, and when I described living in Gorham, we immediately started discussing the MTA proposed extender. His viewpoint was that Buxton and Standish have a lot to gain from the MTA proposal, while Gorham is going to lose out. Gorham loses open space, Smiling Hill Farm connectivity, control of our futures, so that other towns can save 5 to 10 minutes from their commute. That conversation opened my eyes as an independent person who originally harshly criticized the connector. What other people think? Is Gorham at the losing end of the decision? Who stands to gain from this that other than commuters from other towns? Is 5 to 10 minutes worth the loss of a farm, critical wildlife habitat, and the sense of community that often suffers when neighborhoods are divided by roads? I am searching for a compelling reason for this connector to move forward. The MTA did not provide that during the recent public discussion. In fact, arguments were made compellingly against the connector by many, many members of the audience. In fact, they provided hours of commentary, predominantly against the connector. I was there. I think there was 2 for and more than 40 against. What will Gorham look like after the connector is built versus where it is today? Do we know? Have we thought about that? If it is built, will people pay the toll to save a couple minutes? Or will they continue on the 3 free roads like they currently do? Could this be a mistake? Will we regret this decision for generations to come? The MTA presentation failed to address too many unknowns. The Gorham Town Council can firmly say no. This decision is too large to make without new available data, and we do not support this connector currently. I call on the Gorham Town Council to denounce the MTA's current plan and commit to looking deeper into the issue, considering all potential solutions, and if we do decide to move forward, gaining more acceptance from the community before doing so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's David Mahoney. I live at 18 Gateway Commons Drive in Gorham. I spoke against the connector last month, so I'm not here for that because I'm against it still. But I just wanted to call out Councillor Sims for putting forward a proposal for a proclamation May being Bike Month. It's something that Gorham should embrace. We have a village center and a large population base within 2-3 miles of that village center that could be very bikeable. I know the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, it's mentioned in the proposal here. They offer urban riding classes, which I've taken to be comfortable in Portland, but also it has helped me be more comfortable riding Main Street into town when there's no bicycle lane. I think we could improve conditions by signage that a lot of our surrounding towns have, such as motorists share the road with not only bicyclists but pedestrians as well. And it would also be great if we could add some places to put your bike other than leaning against the building. We have a place in Hannaford, we have one outside here and one by the library, but there's not a lot of clearly visible bike racks where you can safely store your bike. So I would encourage the town council to approve this action and declare this Bike Month, and also work with the Coalition of Maine, not only on the urban riding class, which was offered either last fall or the fall before and was not attended. It got canceled because nobody signed up. But I think this time of year is a better time of year to hold anything like that, as well as they do bicycle rodeos for kids, which I believe they've done one in town within the last couple of years. But it's a way to promote bicycling as an alternative to driving somewhere. That's about all I wanted to say, but I am still against the connector. So thank you very much.
you.
Have a good night.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Abby King. I live at 10 Wintergreen Drive. I was here last month to urge you to reconsider your support for the Maine Turnpike Authority's plan to build a highway to Gorham, and I'm here tonight to make the same request. If the problem that the Turnpike's plan seeks to address is 3 to 4 minutes of traffic congestion in South Gorham and North Scarborough, as all of the Turnpike Authority's communications and plans seem to indicate, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a highway spur seems to me to be a pretty outsized solution. I urge you to educate yourself about the many, many alternatives to relieving this traffic congestion that have been suggested, researched, vetted, and included in numerous planning documents at the local and regional level over the course of many years. In fact, the legislature required an analysis of these alternatives as a condition of their authorization of the project. The statute reads, "The authority and the department shall evaluate reasonable alternatives to the building of a connector to Gorham in Cumberland County from Route 114 in South Gorham to an interchange on the Turnpike by completing an alternative mode feasibility study." The MTA looked at a couple options as a straw man alternative to its highway proposal, namely widening the existing roads to an absurd extent, and then concluded that the highway was the only way. I think we are all smart enough to know that this was a self-serving exercise for them that does not meet the intent of the law. I've shared with you over email, and I'll share tonight just a few of the many recent planning documents that offer alternatives. The 2016 Destination 2040 PACS Long Range Transportation Plan, which was adopted in 2016. This plan recognizes congestion challenges in the Route 22, Route 114 overlap area and calls for a study to evaluate and analyze congestion problems and recommended actions. It includes specific recommendations for this area. The 2017 Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan for Gorham Village. In my opinion, if you claim that a highway will help us create a more walkable and bikeable village center, but you haven't implemented many of the changes recommended in this plan, I think that's short-sighted. The 2017 PACS Congestion Management Plan. This plan was delayed and is currently in process, and I'll talk about that later, but page 37 of this study has a long list of ideas for reducing congestion in this study area. The 2018 Getting There From Here PACS's Alternative Transportation Plan. The 2021 Connect 45 PACS Long Range Transportation Plan. There is no mention of or incorporation of a new turnpike spur in this plan, yet it demonstrates how our transportation challenges in the region will be met. Interesting. This plan includes numerous traffic improvement projects in Gorham. The 2021 Transit Tomorrow Plan is a 30-year strategic plan by PACS for enhancing public transportation in the greater Portland area, and currently underway is the PACS's Rapid Transit Study, which stems from a recommendation in said Transit Tomorrow Plan.
Excuse me, could you finish up your comments?
Yes.
And then you could also email us, obviously, the information.
Yep, I sent them
Okay.
a few hours ago. I urge you to consider voting on a resolution to withdraw Gorham from the Memorandum of Agreement with the Maine Turnpike Authority until the PACS congestion management process studies and coalesces all of these alternatives from an unbiased perspective.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tina Rule. I live at 13 Joseph Drive here in town. And I'll be real quick. I have 3 items. I kind of bulleted them for a change. First of all, another successful Gorham Cleans Up on April 21st. It was fantastic. We had blue sky and it wasn't raining or snowing or windy for a change, so it was really nice. And I know a few counselors helped out, but over 1,000 pounds was collected off our streets and gutters and trails, and it was a good day. Look for pictures on Gorham Conservation Commission Facebook page, and a soon-to-be-released video, I'm sure, at GoCat. Garbage to Garden, I'm using. I love it. So if you folks don't know about it, you can have your compost picked up. Sign up for the service. They provide a bucket once a week, or you can deliver your own for free at the 2 containers on Cheek Drive behind the fire station and next to the basketball courts. I think we've cut our garbage in half since we've been using that. We recycle everything, and I just refuse to buy most plastic if I can help it. So with a little determination, organizing your system, your plans, I mean, we've gone from about, average 1 bag per week to about 2 bags per month. Nothing goes into our trash except Kleenex. I'm always wiping my nose, and some wrappings, seriously. So I love the Garden to Compost. Everyone should check it out. Also, I'm not a supporter of the Gorham Connector as well. Tearing up nature and creating more roads is not, it's what everyone else does. You think of all the states below us, we're Maine at the end of the line here. We see what happens, the sprawl, wider roads. If we're gonna widen roads, let's do light rail, trams, or a really comprehensive bus service, especially Route 25, east-west corridor. You can run something started in New Hampshire, bring people working to Maine and dropping them off Gorham, Westbrook. We have, I don't know, thousands of cars passing through our town daily with mainly one person driving to and from. We know that's the truth. We have to think outside the box. So we really need to not do this, and I think it would be a huge mistake. So there you go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mary Emerson. I live on Sebago Lake Road in Gorham. I'm from Gorham, as were many of my ancestors. My parents left teaching to become dairy farmers. They raised their family with a reverence for nature and a commitment to care for the land. Many times I heard my father say, they aren't making any more land. In Gorham, many of the green spaces that we treasure today are thanks to others like my parents, Margaret Young, Bill Rust, the Young family, the Martins, the Mosiers, Straws, Hamlins, Daigles, Gordons, Gimetti, and Hubbard Wilson, to name a few. As caretakers of their land for generations, they've added so much to Gorham's beauty, character, and healthy environment. As our natural spaces dwindle, we have a greater responsibility than ever to preserve our land for ourselves and future generations. With the threat of this turnpike extension barreling our way, we need to carefully consider how much we have to lose. I truly hope that we can revisit alternative solutions that conserve the unspoiled land that we still have. In March, the MTA's presentation to citizens was well attended. The majority of people were clearly unconvinced by the various charts and diagrams, as well as the way many of their sincere and valid questions weren't answered adequately. The obvious lack of serious consideration given to less radical alternatives seemed troubling to most people there. The timeline of this process truly drives home the fact that years have gone by where other less extreme and expensive solutions could already be well underway. This is a pivotal turning point in Gorham's history. As those presently in control, the Gorham Town Council has the power to reject the extreme proposal of the MTA, which has no credibility around finding alternatives to turnpike construction. It will be the best legacy possible for you to ensure that alternatives are objectively analyzed and tried before allowing such an incredibly drastic, expensive, and permanent mistake to cut through our town. Thank you for serving on the Town Council.
Thank you.
Councilor Phillips, do you want them to line up to make it quicker?
Sorry, yes, I'm going to make it as quick as possible because I know we've got a really long night.
Thank you. If anybody else wishes to speak after this
Sorry, I can just
gentleman, if
hand
you
it
could
out.
line up, then you can get ready to speak after he does.
Stonis Moody Roberts, 38 County Road in North Scarborough. Nobody benefits from this Gorham Connector turnpike proposal except the MTA and maybe whoever's building it. They've been telling a lot of whoppers, and everything that I see keeps surprising me of how much they can bend things to make it fit their narrative. So I have a few things for you to look at. The first page is on the MTA's website, showing how they're saying that that traffic in this corridor is increasing. Look carefully. It's a percentage change increase on the y-axis. In orange, you have the overlap. As you can see, from 1990 to now, it's actually dropped. The traffic on the overlap has dropped. In fact, it's dropped from 2013 by almost 30%. Now, they're clouding it by showing Day Road and McClellan Road as increasing. Day Road, when you break it down by the counts for each of those roads, we've got an increase from 2013 on Day Road of about 140 cars, an increase on McClellan Road of about 520 cars per day, and a decrease on the overlap by 7,200 vehicles between 2013 and the most recent data in this graph. So that's a negative 6,535 vehicles per day decrease. And why? It's because we have remote working now. A lot has changed since the pandemic. We've got, despite 10% growth over the course between 2013 and now, That's from the MTA's own website. The second page is from the MTA's land use study that they published in March, and they've been advocating about how this Gorham connector is not going to cause any sprawl, any land change. And you know why? Because what they found is that the primary driver of sprawl, of increased sprawl because of a new highway, is the amount of time savings that it creates. And they found that during the peak hour, when they did all their traffic modeling, during the peak hour, the time savings would only be 3 to 4 minutes, and that's just for West Gorham, South Standish, and a little bit of North Buxton. The rest of Buxton has a peak hour savings of 0 to 1 minutes. That's the MTA's own traffic modeling. And then finally,
Yep,
I'm
if you could
sorry.
finish up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Finally, the last page is, you'll notice that the MTA has not given an updated figure of how much this proposal is going to cost. In 2019, they said it would cost up to $237 million. They've stuck to that figure, but during that time, when you look on U.S. Department of Transportation's construction cost index, the prices increased by 64%. So that $237 million is now $388 million, and that's just the cost. They're taking out bonds which have a 5% interest rate for 30 years. That adds an additional $361 million to that 30-year cost, which means that the total construction cost is actually around $750 million. And I broke down how much per commuter that would be, and it means that with current traffic modeling, each passenger car over that 30-year period would have to pay $7 in order for that to be paid off. Thank you, you guys. I know you have an impossible job, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Kelly DeVoe. I am a resident at 5 Herrick Road here in Gorham. I'm also a proud mom of some Gorham School Department students. Number one, Gorham JV baseball fan. They just won 10-3, so I just got back from that. And I'm also a member of GADI, which is Gorham's Action Team for Youth, which is a community school and police department currently constructed group of people who are focusing on the health and well-being of our youth. I have a number of opinions, but I will keep it very short and only to a few tonight. First, I wanted to start by saying that I appreciate the collaboration and collegiality that we saw and the problem solving that we recently went on during the joint meeting with the Town Council and the School Committee and the Budget Workshop. You asked thoughtful questions, you discussed creative solutions and collaborative ideas. There was professionalism and there was respect demonstrated by all present. Your support and the community's support of the school budget tells youth that we value them and that we are willing to invest in them and in their future. We know that community support is a critically important protective factor for helping our children become healthy adults. Tonight, you're going to hear about the MIHAS, the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey. It is my hope that you will bring the same collaboration and thoughtful questions to this presentation. It is my hope that the council and those watching will better understand the intersectionality between our community and our schools, and that our schools, as microcosms of the community in which they exist, demonstrate the same strengths and the same problems. Only when we focus on community-wide solutions can we ensure an increasingly healthy, protected, and vibrant youth population. My hope is that after this presentation, the Town Council and town offices will commit to working collaboratively once again with the school department and with GADI to ensure that we are addressing needs and bolstering support. I would encourage the town of Gorham to examine and consider the opioid settlement money, for example, and how this could be utilized collaboratively for birth through adult prevention efforts. And please be sure to acknowledge and thank all Gorham educators this week during Teacher Appreciation Week. More to come.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi. My name is Kristen Tugman. I'm at 49 Valley View Drive. I am co-founder of a nonprofit called Community Action for Mental Health. that is dedicated to raising awareness, reducing stigma, and improving access to care for mental health, specifically in Gorham. I also sit on the GADI committee, so I'm here to really emphasize the importance of this particular organization that, as we think about mental health in our community, I spend a lot of time, I've been working in mental health for 30 years, and we currently exist, as you probably know, in a mental health crisis, and Gorham has not been saved from that mental health crisis. I see it every day as I talk to teachers, as I talk to law enforcement, as I talk to community members that our community members are struggling, our youth are struggling, and this organization has an opportunity to impact that struggle. And I as we have conversations, there's so much that we have an opportunity to contribute to relative to the school system, and that doesn't happen without funding. And so as you listen to the presentation, I think we really need to think about how we collaborate through grants, whatever it is that we can get creative on, because I think one of the most important statistics that we need to think about is that for years and years, 1 in 5 of us will experience a mental health condition in a given year. Recently, that has changed to 1 in 4. So what does that mean to you and us? That means it is highly, highly likely that we will run into somebody who is experiencing a mental health challenge. 12% of therapists are accepting new patients, and we've got to support our youth in a way that allows them access to the services and the support that they need at the time that they need it. So I hope that you listen to the presentation and really think about how we can get creative and collaborative together.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public want to speak on something that's not on the agenda? All right. Yep, we have one more public comment that was asked to be read, so the clerk's going to read it now.
This comment is from Sam Purinton from 184 South Street. Hello, councilors. There's a rumor that the Gorham Town Council has no power regarding the proposed highway expansion into Gorham. This rumor is false. The Maine Turnpike Authority has stated that they are building this turnpike because the towns want it. At the same time, our legislatures are hesitant to use their power while Gorham is on the record as desiring this project. It would be exceedingly difficult for the Maine Turnpike Authority to move forward with this project and easier for our Augusta representatives to move against it if its namesake town clearly says that we don't want it.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Councilor Communications. I'm going to start on my left. Councilor Gagnon.
Thank you, Councilor Phillips. We have a upcoming SIPS meeting. We'll be discussing a few items for the master plan and finishing up our work on that, as well as the discussions around economic development and how to move forward post-COVID. I thought the committee did a wonderful job speaking to how we could revitalize some of our old community organizations that existed before COVID and moving forward from this point. I will be attending the Gorham Economic Development Corporation meeting coming up as well, in part of the SIPS representation, and I have 10 other meetings, so I'm not going to go into those as well for this council in the next 2 weeks.
Go ahead, Councilor Wilder-Cross.
Okay, I'm going to start with 3 items of interest from the GPCOG meeting this month. 2 of them have to do with housing, and Gorham isn't the only place that's struggling with housing. So GPCOG is working with lots of organizations trying to figure out how to increase housing. And one of the studies that I thought was particularly interesting is one that GPCOG is doing. Their director of transportation spoke about a regional study to actually reimagine Route 1 between Biddeford and Freeport. And they're exploring ways to build housing opportunities along that corridor. And I found that to be really interesting. We also heard from the GPCOG Director of Community Partnerships, who introduced a new initiative called the Great Maine Neighborhood. We're going to learn more about that initiative at a workshop coming up soon. And because I've mentioned this for the last 4 months, I think, regarding the general assistance. There has not been any final agreement on that, so it still remains up in the air. I'm sad about that. On a more local matter, though, I am grateful for the work of the Gorham Garden Project Group. That's a mouthful to say. They've been working on sprucing up the village green spaces. So you might have noticed some changes in Finney Park and in the Preble Street Common. They've been raking and weeding and getting ready to put some flowers in to make our village warmer and more wonderful. And I want to thank the Gorham Cleanup 100+ volunteers who worked with the Public Works people and the Gorham Rec Department. And they worked on April 23rd, I think, to clean up 5 sites in town. And somebody told me that they picked up 1,600 pounds of trash. That just blows my mind because you're thinking about little bottles and pieces of stuff. Holy cow. So thank you, all of you folks who did that. I'm done.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt?
So for those of you that didn't hear, the first live births at Cherry Hill Farm were successful. We had twin cows, so those will be wandering around the pasture pretty soon. There's 8 other cows that are pregnant right now, so there'll be plenty of babies walking around there. Please give them their space. Don't go up to the barns right now, but they will be in the pastures soon. From there, sorry about the heat in here. If I yawn a lot, it's because I want to fall asleep right now. But I'll get through it, don't worry. And then finally, please donate blood. Thank you. Blood banks are extremely low. They're actually in desperate need of plasma right now. So if you have 2 free hours of your day and can make it to the Red Cross Donation Center, they will take all the plasma they can get right now. So please, please, please donate blood. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some folks may have already seen, next Monday, the 13th through Sunday, the May 19th, it's recognized nationally as Bike to Work Week. So at least on Monday and Friday of next week, I'll be joining a small group of volunteers at least 1 or 2 of the entrances to our Crosstown Trail, which, as many folks know, connects the New Portland Road down to the village, across Libby Avenue, and all the way over to the industrial park, with goals to extend it further. And so we'll be passing out some little Gatorades, safety reflectors, information on bike and walk safety provided by the good folks at the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. If you have any interest in volunteering or learning more about Bike Week, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My town email's on the webpage. It's csims@gorham.me.us. I'm also eager to hear any input or suggestions residents may have regarding safety improvements for biking and walking that you think would be helpful around town. And as Councilor Wilder-Cross noted, I want to thank the Conservation Commission for the great cleanup last month, as well as the great meeting considering options for extending the Crosstown Trail at Demosher Corner. You know, extending and improving this trail, it has the potential to provide many residents with an effective transit route option, while also providing an excellent recreational pathway. And I'd also like to thank our volunteers who help clean up and maintain the excellent trails on a regular basis, and as well as our public works staff, particularly for the recent street sweepings, making life safer for us bikers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lavoie.
To echo what Councilor Sims said about the trail cleanup, after the big storm we had, I'm sure you're all aware, we had a bunch of trees down, damaged, limbs broken, and we have a 50+ mile trail network here in town that received extensive damage. So I just want to give a huge thanks to GP NEMBA and all of the Gorham residents and volunteers that just took it upon themselves to help clear up the trail so everyone can go enjoy being out in nature again. And lastly, all I have is the Finance Committee will be meeting on May 20th at 5:30 p.m. And the only change for this meeting is we'll be in the town manager's office rather than conference room A. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Siegel, go ahead.
Thank you very much. as many have said, Gorham Cleans Up was a great event, and I think a large amount of the 1,600 pounds were what the projects we were working on. And so I want to throw out just a special thank you to Tom Mazza, who brought his UTV, and we really were able to fill up the trailer. And so thank you very much, Tom, for your vehicle and work for that. I'm not sure if this will be repeated shortly, but just so everyone knows, there is a special town council meeting Monday, May 13th. It is a little out of the ordinary being on a Monday night, so I want to make sure everyone is aware, and it's specifically discussing White Birch Lane. So please come to that 6:30, 6:30?
Yep.
6:30. Also, the book sale happened this past weekend. If you missed it, I'm very sorry. It was awesome. It was great. The Friends of the Baxter Library do awesome work, and I'm really impressed. It was a lovely event, and the trains were just so cool, the miniature trains. And the farmers market is back on. Highly suggest everybody go Saturday mornings, 8:30 to 12:30, right in this here parking lot. It is a lovely time. They have a food truck there now, and every year seems to be more vendors. So it's great. Spend your money at local farms. The ordinance committee met last month, as we do every month. We discussed, so everybody knows here, we discussed school impact fees and got some legal information that they're very hard to actually utilize. We discussed clustered wastewater systems, although we're waiting for more information, the complete streets policy, which I believe is coming back to us here at the council, public utility impact fees, and parking, everybody's favorite topic, parking ordinances. Next month, the ordinance committee is meeting May 23rd at 10 a.m. in conference room A. Once again, that's May 23rd at 10 a.m. We've had members of the public come. It's great. We're going to be picking up some of the same topics as well as bringing a couple new ones. So we're going to continue talking about clustered wastewater systems, the complete streets policy, more on parking, and we're also going to be discussing affordable housing and setbacks and building heights for the purposes of increasing economic development. So if you're interested, come join us. Lastly is the GEDC has an opening. If anyone is interested, that is the Gorham Economic Development Corporation. They focus on, no, it's corporation, I think. Because they're technically a separate entity. They focus on economic development in Gorham. So if you're very interested in that, please apply. All the information's on the town website, and look forward to the interviewing. All right, that's everything. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You just reminded me about the Cherry Hill Farmers Market. Starts in June. It hasn't started yet. It'll be out in the parking lot next to Sebago Brewing in front of the Cherry Hill Farm. They'll be there from 2 to 6 on Wednesdays, so that's a midweek market, so then you don't have to wait till Saturday to come to the Gorham Market. I want to thank the police department for putting up their lighted sign to remind people that this is Motorcycle Safety Month and to look twice and you might save a life, so I'm glad that they put that up there. And the annual Gorham Taste Walk is June 2nd this year from 11 to 2, and there's more information at the Young Life Sebago website and their Facebook page about that event. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go through these very quickly. Also, just echoing the special town council meeting on May 13th to discuss the use of a public property potentially for road access behind Village School, White Birch Lane. So that is May 13th at 6:30 here in council chambers. The following day, May 14th, the town council has public hearings on the school and town budgets and votes on those respectively at 6:30. June 11th is the school validation vote, state primaries, and local referendum on a new fire engine, which is there's public hearing for tonight. Public Works is, I want to thank them. They're kind of the unsung heroes behind cleanup and storms and make everything happen. They're halfway through their street sweeping schedule, or more than halfway through it, and there's a list on the town website. And also the Economic Development Steering Committee will be meeting Thursday, I believe, to review consulting firms for that study. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and now we'll have the school committee report from Sarah Perkins, because you're still here. Thank you.
Yes, I am. Thank you. All right. Everybody should have a copy of my report. I'm just going to read through it so those that don't have it can hear it. Starting with our budget update, we just wanted to echo a thank you to the Town Council for a very productive joint budget workshop meeting a few weeks ago. The school committee came away with a clear sense of direction, which we very much appreciate. A reminder that the budget Q&A document is open until May 10th for additional questions ahead of the May 14th vote. The Fiscal Sustainability Committee, the Joint Fiscal Sustainability Committee, has gotten off to a great start, and we're very much looking forward to those continued meetings together to help inform the future of our community. The next meeting will be held on May 20th at 6 p.m. in the downstairs conference room here at the Municipal Center. The meeting will be open to the public, live streamed, and recorded, so no excuses for not watching it in some way, shape, or form. Moving on, the Maine Department of Education capital project applications. We've begun work to complete multiple applications for capital projects for schools through the Maine Department of Education, working with LaValle Brensinger Architects. A small steering committee has been formed to guide this process. Applications are due to the state by the end of August of this year. The state will then spend considerable time reviewing the applications and conducting site visits to aid in scoring. We will likely not hear about our placement on the list of projects until late spring or early fall of 2025. If, and for those who aren't looking at my report, that's capital I, capital F, if we are funded for a project, we would form a building committee that would be much broader in nature than the current steering committee. Moving on, the legislative session has ended and 2 bills have passed that will have future impacts on our schools that we wanted to bring to your attention. The first is LD 974, which is an act to establish a minimum pay for educational technicians and other school support staff. This bill sets a new minimum wage for ed techs at 125% of the state minimum wage, and for other school support staff at 115% of the state minimum wage. This is effective July 1st, 2025. And we're working to understand the impacts of these changes on the FY26 budget. While we already likely meet these requirements in the majority of positions affected, they will complicate our ability to attract and retain employees as other districts come up to these minimums, and we need to compete to attract and retain these folks. Secondly is the CDS bill, which requires school districts across the state to take on the free appropriate public education, or FAPE, responsibilities for 3- and 4-year-olds within the next 4 years, which would be by FY29. We continue to explore the best timing for taking on this work, and will make a final determination by the end of this school year. Moving on, we are looking for at least 3 new bus drivers over the course of the next 6 to 8 months. And we have a very active Earn While You Learn program that allows individuals to be trained, take their permit, and work to complete the requirements for their CDL Class B license with passenger endorsement. Reach out to Norm Justice or the School District Central Office if you're interested. And finally, congratulations to our Gorham students who successfully competed in the Odyssey of the Mind Regional Championships on April 27th, with a special thank you to Danielle Quimby for her support and facilitation of the teams. I will just close out by saying that unfortunately I am unable to stay for the GADI presentation, but we were lucky enough to have it also at the school committee, and it is impactful. So I'm very pleased that they're able to make that presentation this evening as well.
Thank you. Any questions for? Yep.
Chair Perkins, are you still in need of substitutes?
Yes, and substitute nurses.
And nurses too.
Anybody who would like to help out in our school district, we can find a spot for you.
And when is graduation this year?
It is June 9th.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there any other events that would require people to be on the lookout? I think prom already happened.
Prom did already happen. Superintendent Perry, any other dates of note? Okay. Eighth grade recognition night is coming up. June 7th. So, and all of our events are on the Gorham School District website if anybody's interested as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Chair, thank you very much. For the capital the MDOE capital projects, and you can, if you need to, ask.
Call my support line over here? Yes.
Get a lifeline there. How many schools are typically funded?
Making the top 25, nope, of the list is a good sign, but only 10 are funded,
And
typically.
do you know typically how many districts apply?
We have indications that there are a lot of applications pending.
Okay.
As we all know, it's getting harder and harder for a community to afford a new school facility on its own.
Yeah. And then the two bills that passed, LD 974 and the CDS bill, do either of them come with revenue to offset the increased costs we'll have to incur?
I'm going to answer the one I know, and then I'm going to use my lifeline on the second one. So I'm going to start from the bottom up. The CDS bill would come with additional funding to provide educational services to those 3 and 4-year-olds. The LD 974, I believe it did come with some funding for the initial year, but after that, we'd be on our own with it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and now we are going to have a presentation from Brooke Prue from the Gorham Action Team for Youth. And hopefully this works.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Are we connected? Hopefully, yeah, there we go. All right, so I know there are a lot of people here for business, so I will try to talk as fast as I can. Good evening. My name is Brooke Prue, and although I wear a lot of hats here in Gorham, from a GHS alum, current resident, a school employee, I'm actually here tonight as my role as facilitator for Gorham Action Team for Youth, or as we call short, GADI. Gorham Action Team for Youth is a coalition of people focused on promoting positive youth development and preventing at-risk behavior for youth in Gorham. We are made up of local school staff, Gorham Police Department, local community organizations, and community members. If there's anybody out there listening that would love to join us, whether you're a business owner, community member, or parent, please feel free to reach out to us. This presentation, I would like to note, was put together by one of our amazing members, Eilish Carpenter from Cumberland County Public Health. She is GADI's Prevention Specialist Liaison. All right, so here we go. I'm going to be sharing with you data from the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, or I call short the MIHAS. So I'm grateful to be here tonight to share this important data with you. As you can see on this slide, the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey is administered every 2 years, beginning back in February 2009. Questions are from a collection of national health surveys. Reliability of answers are tested, and individual surveys tested for consistency of answers. Types of questions asked on the MIHAS have included adverse childhood experiences, substance use, including alcohol, tobacco, electronic vapor products, and marijuana, bullying, both when we look at cyberbullying and in-person bullying, and specifically also bullying based on race and ethnicity. Questions around mental health, physical activity and nutrition, protective factors or factors of resilience, school climate, and sexual health. All right, so notes on this presentation. So our ask of you in presenting this data from the high school and middle school from 2023 is to use this data to inform your practice and work as town council members. Specifically, maybe when it comes to things such as ordinances of substance use at the local level, when you debate wants versus needs of a school budget and understanding why things are put into the budget, and to consider these data points when thinking of services and resources for our Gorham community. Although the data is collected at a school level, this is not just a school need or strengths. These are really community data points we should all be using to inform our practice. So the data shared tonight will include 2023 data alone, or as a comparison to Gorham's 2021 data,
or a comparison on the Maine state average for 2023. If you notice an asterisk in any of the graphs or data points, that just denotes the statistically significant change. So we'll get started. Our first set of slides will review data collected at the high school level. All right, so the number of GHS students who speak another language at home is at 8%, which is significantly higher than 2021, which is about 50 students. We already know from our enrollment this year that this number has already increased and is much higher. Our overall demographic of who is a Gorham resident is changing as we begin to become much more diverse. We highlight this data because we know Black, Indigenous, and people of color or students of color are more likely than their peers to experience mental health challenges, race-based discrimination, and lower rates of access to behavioral health care. Another demographic we want to highlight is 24%, or 1 in 4 GHS students identified as LGBTQ+, which is not significantly different from 2021 or the Maine state average. And we share this again. We know that our LGBTQ+ students are more likely than their peers to experience mental health challenges, substance use, violence, bullying, and discrimination, and lower rates of family and community belonging, which is viewed as a protective factor. So now we're going to take a quick look at the substance use data. So here, this graph depicts 10-year MIHAS data for reporting on past 30-day alcohol, marijuana, and prescription drug use. Reporting on use on all three have gone up since 2021, but have not shown a statistically significant increase from going on, but the numbers are slowly going back up. Out of the 24% of GHS students who reported past 30-day alcohol use, 28% of them reported binge drinking, which is about 5 or more drinks at one time. This is about 35 of our students. 8% of GHS students report having been drunk or high at school, which is significantly lower than the Maine state average of 11%, but it's still a concerning number. When we look at cigarettes, e-vape products use, 4% of Gorham school students reported past 30-day cigarette use, while 12% of Gorham high school students reported 30-day electronic or vapor product use. I would just add, when presenting this to our staff, both at the middle school and the high school level, staff were surprised. We thought these numbers would be much more higher based on our observations and issues that are coming up. Risk factors for use include access to substances, perception of harm, risk of substance use, and some indirect factors like violence, bullying, and mental health. So when we look at risk factors and access, 71% of GHS students reported they have sort of or very easy access to alcohol, which is significantly higher than the percentage of students who reported easy access in 2021. That was a 10% increase. GHS reporting on easy access to marijuana also increased from 43% in 2021 to 52% in 2023. So our youth are slowly believing they have more access to substances. We're looking at the same question here, but comparing GHS reporting to the Maine state averages. The same as before, 71% of GHS reported that they have sort of or easy access to alcohol, which is significantly higher than the Maine state average of 63% reporting easy access. Reporting on easy access to marijuana sits around the same percentage of Maine state average at 52%. Did I skip a slide? 17% of Gorham High School students have been offered, sold, or given alcohol or drugs on school property in the last 12 months. Right, this would include school days, school events, sporting events, and things of that nature. This is not significantly different from 2021 reporting or the Maine state average. So now we're going to take a look at risk factors and around the perception of high school students. So Here, this is a comparison perception of risk of substance use between GHS students in 2023 and the 2023 Maine state average. It's important to note that perception of use does not indicate actual rates of use. So 31% of GHS students think that someone having 1 or 2 drinks every day has a low risk of harm, which is not significantly different than the Maine state average. 10% of GHS students think that binge drinking 1 or 2 times a week has a low risk of harm, which is significantly lower than the Maine state average at 17%, which is great. 19% of GHS students think that using prescription drugs that are not prescribed to you was a low risk, which is also significantly lower than the Maine state average. These data points definitely do inform, I know, our health curriculum and what we're teaching with our students at the middle school and high school levels. Here we see the same data points we just talked about, but within Gorham looking at a 10-year graphic. We do not see much significant change in the last 10 years related to risk perception, but there is a slow decline, and we hope that that will continue. All right, next we're going to move in some indirect factors that lead to risk of substance use. 14% of GHS students reported that violence at home made them want to leave home, which is significantly lower than the Maine state average of students who reported this question at 20%. This is good data, but it also tells us, because it tells us that most of our students feel safe at home, but that 14% who don't are probably one of our most at-risk youth. Violence at school. So these data points are looking at feeling safe at school. The first graph shows 89% of GHS students agree or strongly agree they feel safe at school. This is significantly higher than the Maine state average. The second graph, however, takes a look at the Gorham data from 2021 to 2023. Here you'll see we had a pretty significant decline in 2021. 94% of GHS students reported they felt safe, and in 2023 that dropped to 89%. You might start to have already noticed the trend, or will continue to notice the trend. In 2021, we overall saw protective factors increase and risk factors decrease. Gaddy has hypothesized that this is maybe due to us coming out of the pandemic when our community came together to support one another. We had an increase in mental health and social emotional supports during that time, smaller classroom sizes, et cetera, that could have led to that data really improving in 2021. Here you're going to see that this data trend here more clearly, right, when we look at the data over 10 years. As we return to normal, we also return to that 10-year average. So in the last 10 years, reporting on feeling safe at school has remained consistently the same, except for that huge increase in 2021. Pretty significant. Now we're going to take a look at bullying. 18% of GHS students reported being bullied at school. I do know as a response to this data, right, how we are using it at our schools, GHS admins, social workers, and counselors have already started to take action to make sure the bullying and reporting form is much more easily accessible to students, while also addressing other risk factors and improving advisories and other work they're doing at the high school level. Over 10 years, we see that GHS reporting of bullying at school has remained fairly consistent. 2021 again showed a significant decrease in reporting of bullying at schools. 2023, we returned back to our previous data points at 18%. All right, so 18% of Gorham High School students reported being bullied on school property. 19% have reported being bullied electronically, or what we would also call cyberbullying. 4% of GHS students reported that during their life, they have felt they were most of the time or always treated badly or unfairly at school because of their race or ethnicity. And although 4% seems like a really low number, when only 8% of our student body is under that BIPOC population, 4% of them is pretty alarming. Here are some risk factors that impact students, right? So 2% of our GHS students report housing instability. 29% report they have lived with an adult with disordered alcohol or drug use. And 18% of GHS students indicated they have 4+ adverse childhood experiences, which is significantly lower than the Maine state average. Although lower, we know that that 18% of Gorham with 4+ ACEs are truly our most at-risk students that we need to be supporting. Mental health at the high school. So 31% of GHS students reported they felt so sad or hopeless for 2+ weeks in a row that they stopped doing usual pleasurable activities. 15% of GHS students reported that they seriously considered attempting suicide in the last 12 months. These statistics have remained consistent over the past 10 years. So now we're going to move into some positives, and we're going to look at some resiliency factors. Factors, right, that lead to reducing the risk of substance use, and these would include school support, family support, community mattering, and physical activity. So when we look at mental health support, out of the 31% of GHS students who reported feeling sad or hopeless, 36%, or about a third, got help from an adult. This has remained consistent over the past 10 years. And 3% of GHS students who reported feeling sad said they got that support from a teacher or staff member at school. 57% of GHS students reported that they were active for an hour or more 5 days a week, which is significantly higher than the Maine state average, right? Go Rams, we are good at our athletics. Family support. 91% of GHS students reported that their families have clear rules around substance use, and this has remained consistent for the past 10 years. 84% of GHS students reported that their parents talk with them about what they're doing at school, which is higher than the Maine state average at 80%. Percentage of students who agree that their families give them love and support is at 86%, which again remains higher than the Maine state average. School support, 78% of Gorham students agree that at least one teacher really cares about them and helps them. 53% of GHS students reported that people at GHS care about and encourage students, which is significantly higher than the Maine state average, but clearly still work to do. 55% of GHS students reported that GHS enforces rules fairly, which is significantly higher than the Maine state average and has remained consistent over the past 10 years. Percentage of students who report an adult at school addresses conflict, negative language, and bullying in a positive way is at 39%, which is higher than the Maine state average and has stayed consistent for the last 10 years. Community mattering. So here, 58% of GHS students reported they feel that they matter to the people of Gorham, which is higher than the Maine state average of 50%. So as we wrap up the GHS data, and I have a quick middle school, I pause with the hope that we as a community can continue to build on these protective and resiliency factors so these numbers increase and we as a community can reach our full potential of being good to being great. And then middle school, again, we'll quickly review some quick demographics. Here we know at Gorham Middle School in 2023, 7% of Gorham Middle School students indicated they spoke something other than English spoken at home. Again, we know that number has significantly increased in this school year alone. 20% of Gorham Middle School students, or about 1 in 5, have reported identifying as LGBTQ+. Again, we share these demographics due to the increased risk factors for these specific populations of people. When we look at substance use at the middle school level, here 3% of Gorham Middle School students reported alcohol use, which is consistent with the 2021 reporting. 2% of Gorham Middle School students reported marijuana use, which is lower than the Maine state average, and 4% reported using prescription drugs not prescribed to them, which is consistent with 2021 and also the 2023 data for the state of Maine. 4% of Gorham Middle School students reported vape use, and no cigarette use data was reported. Risk factors for use. So here, GMS students reported, right, this is again perception of easy access to alcohol remained consistent with 2021, and reporting perception of easy access to marijuana increased from 11 to 17%. Remember, perception of access does not necessarily indicate actual use. 7% of Gorham Middle School students have been offered, sold, or given alcohol or drugs on school property. The middle school MIHA survey asked participants if they think their parents would feel it was not wrong for their student to have 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages every day. 3% of Gorham Middle School students report their parents would think that that was wrong. 3% of Gorham Middle School students reported their parents would think it was not wrong for them to use marijuana, which is significantly lower than the Maine state average at 8%. Right? We as a community need to think about how do we keep educating and providing support to families so these data points stay low. Oops. Here we continue to look at youth perception. So this is showing that less GMS students in 2023 think that people have no risk of harm when using marijuana 1 to 2 times per week compared to the state average. But more GMS students think that people have no harm in 2023. Right, so when we look at the Maine state data, Gorham's doing better. But when we look at our Gorham 2021 to Gorham 2023, that number is increasing. Violence at school. Here, fewer GMS students agree they feel safe at school in 2023 than compared to 2021. We went from 93% during that COVID hybrid bubble to 84%. Bullying. So 39% of GMS students reported being bullied at school, and 25% reported being electronically bullied. Both are significantly lower when you compare that to the Maine state average. Being a social worker at GMS, right, my subjective data, I would share how much these two environments intertwine with this blend of carrying over where something will start online and come into school or vice versa. Mental health risk factors. So 24% of GMS middle schoolers reported that they have felt sad or hopeless in 2+ weeks, and 14% of GMS students reported they seriously considered attempting suicide in the last 12 months. Both are significantly lower than the Maine state average and have remained consistent for the last 10 years. As a parent and a social worker, though, these statistics worry me. So factors for resilience, we're almost done. Physical activity, so 50% of GMS students report they are active 60+ minutes, which is great, but that was a decrease by 12% from 2021. School supports, 66% of Gorham Middle School students agree that at least one teacher really cares about them and gives them help and support. Family support, 82% of GMS students reported that their parents talk with them about what they're doing in school. This was a significant decrease, though, compared to our 2021 data at 91%. Percentage of students who agree that their families give them love and support most or all of the time is at 91%, and that is doing amazing compared to the Maine state average at 84%. 58% of Gorham Middle School students report they feel like they matter to their people in their community. So that wraps up our data points. I know that was a rush and a lot at once. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and please know GADI is happy to continue collaboration with the Town Council to focus on prevention at the community level.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Rob, go ahead.
Is there a way you can share that presentation with
I
the
can
council?
send it to
You
the
can
rest
send
of
it to them, okay.
I'll send it to
Yes,
the rest of them. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and feel free to reach out with questions after you can take a closer look at it.
Thank you, Brooke.
Yeah.
That was very insightful. Marijuana accessibility, I have to look at it because it's a weird, I have trouble pronouncing that word sometimes. Do you feel that since the state has adopted legalizing marijuana sales, that has increased over time?
So yeah, that's what we're seeing in the trend. We knew with marijuana becoming legal. I know in our substance use prevention lessons, I go in and teach substance use prevention in 4th and 5th grade with our school resource officer, Officer Gagnon. We are talking about with kids around marijuana, specifically teaching them, and kids very young are aware. They're reporting seeing it at homes. We are very clear that their parents or grown-ups at home are doing nothing illegal, but what is safe for them, and that access, kids are like it's left on the coffee table, like at a coffee table, the kitchen counter, on a nightstand, and feeling like we have to do better education at a community level for parents around how to appropriately store their marijuana that they're using legally, but not to have that around, similar to what education we've provided to people, even just around alcohol, and making sure you're monitoring that.
Thank you. I see that cigarette and e-vape as well is really low. We've done, I think, a successful avenue in that area of reducing usage with literature. Do you think that maybe it's time to start having campaigns similar to tobacco where marijuana is, notified to the public that this is an area that you may not want to go down, similar to cigarettes?
Yeah, I think that we're lucky in the state of Maine. The state of Maine has a ton of free resources, even for teens, when it comes to vaping and to reduce use. I know there have been campaigns that have been out. I think that's why we've seen things reduce. And other things such as larger companies such as Juul getting fined, right, for how they're advertising and marketing to certain things. Reducing the different types of e-liquid flavors is a key to students not wanting to do it. I know our health curriculums are shifting. Gorham's really also looking at our restorative approach to students who are experimenting and using, and how do they get support. And I think adults need more education on nicotine content, how much nicotine are found in e-liquids and pods. I don't think parents are aware of how much is in there and what their kids are consuming and how much they're consuming it.
Thank you very much for the work you do.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question about the non-prescription drugs that the kids are getting their hands on. Do you have any idea how they get that? Is that something that they're getting from other kids that are maybe, or from their parents?
So most substances are from people that they know. The sharing of prescription medication, I would say, is like somebody who takes an ADHD medication or an anxiety med, and then they're giving it right to a friend. So what we know is with substance use is most people are accessing it through somebody that they know. Online is creating a whole other, safety concern with access. That we're really struggling with when it comes especially to certain types of social media applications. But it's usually by somebody that they know and something that's just in somebody's medicine cabinet, which I know why. Gorham is super lucky. We have a 24-hour drug take-back box here in Gorham, where other communities only do it twice a year. But those are safety measures and prevention of how we reduce that and getting unnecessary medication away from our youth here in Gorham. Yeah.
Thank you. On your numbers, just so I make sure I saw it correctly, that was 15% of Gorham High School students have considered suicide or attempted?
So at Gorham, have seriously thought or considered. So Gorham, 61 pages of data. Let me see. Actually, if I go to escape, I can find it better here. It is, I think, 14% at Gorham Middle School have seriously considered or attempted, and then 15% of Gorham High School students have seriously considered attempting suicide.
And what's the current population of the number of high school students right now?
800.
830.
830, all right, so just calling it a clean 800, that would be 120 students who have considered attempting suicide in this town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
scary. Yeah.
I guess moving it from the percentage to an actual numbers, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah. And that's what, as Kristen was up here during her public comment, and we're in a mental health crisis with although wait lists are improving, it's also incredibly hard. Wait lists are still there. Wait lists are long. I know in trying to refer kids outside of Gorham schools, we are such a small community that there is concern, and breaking that stigma. We have wonderful counselors and therapists here in our community to serve, but there's a stigma of, I don't want others to know that my kid's struggling. My kid doesn't even want others to know that they're struggling. We need to do a lot more work around, I think, breaking that stigma down, and providing more access and resource for services for our youth. Yeah.
So what can we as a council do? I feel like often we say, oh, they're under 18. Okay, they're the school's responsibility, although they are our constituents as well. So like, yeah, what can we do as a council?
And this is where I think although it's our youth, I think I would say our families would say they also need support, right? Gaddy does provide, I mean, we have no budget, so they're like nothing, and we try our best. We have wonderful support from Cumberland County Public Health. It would be great also if town council wants to come to educate when you think of other things, businesses coming in, et cetera. But also I think Gaddy does try to put on at least 4, sometimes 6 community-wide events. If we can have more endorsement from you guys, maybe collaborate more with you on how to communicate to the public these resources that we're providing for families. We're trying at a school level. Sometimes we get good turnout, sometimes nobody's showing up, and maybe more work around, right? Like collaborating and letting the community know about Gorham Action Team for Youth, about the things that we're doing as an organization, I think would be super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was very interesting information.
Thank
And
you.
I did share it with the rest of the
Okay,
counselors. So
great.
Thank you
so
very much.
Public hearing number 1 on item 2024-5-1. Public hearing on a referendum scheduled for June 11th, 2024 to appropriate a sum of money not to exceed $875,000 for a capital expenditure to purchase a new fire truck. Such $875,000 amount to be paid from the capital reserve fund of the town. This public hearing is primarily for informational purposes and no additional action is anticipated.
Public hearing number 1 is now open. If anyone wants to speak on this item, please go to the podium. Seeing no one jumping up, the public hearing is closed.
Public hearing number 2 on item 2024-5-2. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposal to issue a new adult-use marijuana manufacturing facility license to Harrison Otterbein, Calendar Island Cannabis, LLC, 289 New Portland Road, property owned by 789 Development, LLC, administrator sponsored.
Public hearing number 2 is now open. If anyone wants to speak on this item, please go to the podium. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed.
Proposed order 24-58. Order that the town council issue a new adult-use marijuana manufacturing facility license to Harrison Otterbein, Calendar Island Cannabis, LLC, 289 New Portland Road, property owned by 789 Development.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? By Councilor Sims. Any discussion on this item? Councilor Gagnon?
Madam Chair, I mean, we just had a discussion about marijuana and other things. It seems like we have more and more marijuana grow operations coming to Gorham. Through you to the town manager, how many do we have now? I know New Portland Road to the industrial park seems to be a hotbed of where a lot of these seem to be going, but do you have a rough idea how many?
Thank you. I don't know the number off the top of my head. We capped them at, for adult use at 20.
Yeah.
Is that right, Tom? I don't think we've hit that 20 limit yet to date, so we do have quite a few. We're not necessarily in a position to not allow them in Gorham under the state law. And then we have the adult use and then the medical components of it. But I think it's definitely less than 20. We can get the council the exact number.
And do they have unlimited amounts that they can create here, or is there a limit to this one facility?
I'd have to refer to staff. It's been a long time since we've dove into the marijuana ordinance, but we can either get that answer tonight or get it to the council later.
Yeah, if you want to give it to it later. I'm more just curious now because we have, I think I've done 5 of these in a year, in a 2-year span, it seems like, so.
Yeah, so I asked that same question when we got a whole bunch at once, and a lot of them, if you go back and look, are just replacing. So it's a lot of the same facilities, but it's a new person operating, and then we're giving out licenses, because I had the same concern that there was a lot coming through, and but if you look at the addresses, it's just it's a new owner with a new license, so.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the town manager, one more question. Is that 20 number, is that a state arbitrated number, or is that one that we've chosen?
I believe that's one that we chose. So we were allowed to cap it within reason under state statute, and I think 20 was what we ended up with at the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas.
Public hearing number 3 on item 2024 5-3. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposal to issue a new liquor license to Backwoods Burger Shack, 680 Gray Road, administrator sponsored.
Public hearing on this is now open. If anyone from the public would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium. All right, seeing no one, public hearing's closed.
Proposed order 2459, order that the town council issue a new liquor license to Backwoods Burger Shack, 680 Gray Road.
Is there a motion?
So
Motion by
moved.
Councilor Gagnon.
Second.
Second by Councilor Pratt. Any council discussion? I'm just excited for this place to open. That's what I want to say.
Well, I was hoping that they were here so they could advertise their
Oh,
business.
Oh, you
Yeah,
are
well,
here.
come up and advertise
Oh,
your
okay.
business. Well,
Yeah.
speak
Would
on
you
his
like
behalf.
would you like to come up and talk about your business?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Opening day?
Yeah. Okay, great. And your opening day?
We just passed our health inspection license.
Okay.
And so we are just waiting for one more issue to be from. And after that, we are hoping by the end of the month, 1st of June, at the very latest.
End of
Okay.
month, 1st of June,
Okay,
if they can't
everybody
hear it.
keep an eye out.
Yeah, in the location so they know.
Yep. So it's right on Gray Road. It's hard to give the numbers. It's right next to
The
the gas
Rotary.
station and the Rotary in Little Falls, so we can't wait. Yep.
Usually we do a pop like that, but I was waiting. I was
I
like,
know,
who's
sorry.
coming up? You know? No, it's all right.
I do have a question.
Yep.
And I think she's answered the question, but I just want to make sure. It said that both fire and code are working with them on the inspections and cleaning up the code violations, so I'm, thank you. That was my only question.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Just,
go ahead.
just so the mic picked that up, and I just wanted to be very clear. Staff's working with the business to just correct some issues with the building. No issues at all with them opening. Sounds like they're right on track, and we're happy to have them. So,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas. You're welcome.
Public hearing number 4 on item 2024 3-6. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposed amendment to the zoning map to change map 8 lot 10 from urban residential expansion district to the South Gorham Crossroads District, administrator sponsored.
Public hearing number 4 is now open. If anyone would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Roger Brown, 52 Day Road. For years, in my opinion, this town has been pushing through zoning amendments without giving proper statutory notice to the people living in and adjacent to the areas being rezoned. State law sets 2 levels of notice requirements when it comes to zoning changes, and the town seems to have complied with the first level, which is that every zone change proposal has to be posted at the town office and in a newspaper of general circulation. But in certain situations, an additional level of public notice is also required, including individual notification to property owners within and abutting the area to be rezoned. Specifically, these additional notice requirements apply to any zone change proposal, and I quote, that has the effect of permitting any industrial, commercial, or retail uses where any of these uses is prohibited. And if you want to look it up, my legal reference is Maine Statutes Title 30A, Section 4352, subsections 9 and 10. So again, the individual notice to the affected property owners is required for any zone change proposal that has the effect of permitting any industrial, commercial, or retail uses where any of these uses is prohibited. So there are two parts to it. To apply the language to the Newton Drive proposal, the first question is, would the proposed zone change have the effect of permitting any industrial, commercial, or retail uses? And the answer obviously is yes. The list of permitted uses in the South Gorham Crossroads district is more than a page long, and it includes light industrial use, commercial school, and retail store. There are many more. I'm just giving the three examples that include the actual terms of the statute: industrial, commercial, and retail. But the second component is that the second condition to be met is, are any of these industrial, commercial, or retail uses prohibited there under the current zoning? And the answer again is yes. None of these uses show up as either permitted or special exception uses in what is there now the urban expansion district. So both of the conditions for the additional notice were met, which in my opinion should have triggered the requirement to notify the abutters individually. Since it appears that no individual notices were sent out to the affected property owners, I would argue therefore that the town has failed to meet the notification requirements of the law, and that the correct action for you would be to restart the process and go through the proper notification requirements. Okay? Oh. Before I sit down, can I add that the planning staff has already been approached with this line of thought, and the answer that came back was that the additional notice requirements don't apply here because the urban expansion district permits some commercial uses, just not exactly the same ones that the South Gorham Crossroads district does. And the examples that we were given were home occupations, nursing homes, multifamily housing, and bed and breakfast. And I would say that if you take that interpretation to its logical conclusion, that no town would ever be subject to the law's additional notice requirements, so long as every zone in town has at least one commercial use, even if that use is only home occupations. And I believe that most residential zones in every town in the state of Maine allows home occupations in residential zones, so the law would never kick in if one commercial use is allowed in every residential zone. To put it hypothetically, imagine that you live in an all-residential zone where home occupations are allowed, and without giving you any advance notice other than a notice in the paper and a poster on the bulletin board here, that the town can come along and rezone you to an unlimited density zone of factories, warehouses, and trucking terminals, or hotels, restaurants, gas stations, and box stores, and they don't have to notify you. And if you do, in order to get notice of the zone change, you would have to either read the Portland Press Herald every day, or come in here and look at the bulletin board every week, maybe, to try and find the notice.
Could you finish up so we can have other people speak, please?
And if you do find the notice of the hearing, this is what it says. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposed amendment to the zoning map to change map 8 lot 10 from urban residential expansion district to South Gorham Crossroads district. So seriously, who knows where map 8 lot 10 is? Most of us don't know what our own map and lot number are, let alone where map 8 lot 10 is. So it seems almost like, if I were at all cynical, that the town is not only avoiding its legal obligation to notify people of zone changes, but they're actually going out of their way to hide the proposal from people who might care about it. So I'll leave it there, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May it please the council, my name is Richard Foley. I live at 14 Newton Drive here in Gorham. And Roger just stole some of my thunder, so I have to get through some other areas here. The history of this area is at the top of Newton Drive and Shirley Lanes. It was originally proposed for a 24, but the engineer couldn't count 23, then 25 single-family houses. That plan fell apart, and then it was proposed, part of that actually was brought to life was that everyone down there is on well and septic. And the wells aren't doing too good because every time another house goes in, somebody drops another well point into the aquifer, there's less and less water. And we all know that the town's position is not to extend water by itself. So we had come before the planning board to express our concern, put the onus on the planning board that if you guys do this, make sure we don't run out of water because, you know, it would be a problem for everybody. The 24/25/26 houses became 66 55 plus retirement housing. Apparently the out-of-town developers couldn't make enough money to do it, even though they had doubled it, actually had gone up some 250% in size, going from the 24 to the 66, and now they want another 50% increase in order to pay to bring water in, which translates to the profit margin has to increase. All that aside, the holy grail of the town is the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan prohibits this action in this area. Specifically, it states that on page 52 of the comprehensive plan, if you have it in front of you, you can scroll down to see it. It says that it will not affect the neighborhood of Shirley and Newton Drive. This is in direct it's directly against that policy that's already the comprehensive plan. We were forced a couple of years ago to have our area rezoned under the comprehensive plan, and now this is a second bite at the apple. They want to change it from what it is where we live to an area that is not even adjacent to us. It's the crossroads. It's on the other side of the CMP power line and the natural gas pipeline that runs down through there. So I would urge you, when it comes time to make a vote on this, when somebody makes a motion, that the motion is a negative vote, that you do not support this. And you have to also keep in the back of your mind that someday you'll all be off the board and something like this will come up in your neighborhood, and you want to hope that the can of worms hasn't been opened to go in and willy-nilly change a zoning ordinance so that you might have a 7-Eleven next door to you, because that's what this will do. It's changing that zone to allow industrial, commercial, and retail sources in there. And they may not have plans to do that today, but if you make the zone change, it allows for somebody else afterwards to follow in. So again, at the very least, table the issue until you can look at the comprehensive plan, because it does specifically state that this will not come up and touch the Shirley, Newton Drive neighborhoods. And that's what this is going to do. So please do your due diligence and protect the citizens and not the developers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Tom Pittman, 26 Shirley Lane. Thank you for hearing our comments.
talk about stealing my thunder. Those two guys said a lot of what I was going to say already, so I'm not going to repeat all that. But I just wanted to reiterate that we were assured that this South Gorham Crossroads District was not going to impact where we live now. We're getting our heads around the zone that we are have currently been put into, which is urban residential, and so getting our head around what that means, and now all of a sudden we're looking at needing to deal with this too. So our neighborhood is very residential where we live. This just seems very inappropriate for where we're at. Okay, so right now most things speak to residential development in our area, but the proposed changes will allow a maximum density for residential uses should be 12 to 15 units per net acre. A minimum overall density, not less than 5 units per net acre for any individual residential project. So that really makes the density quite a bit higher in our area. We're also looking at permitted uses in this area now, non-residential uses, each of which permitted in the district as part of the mixed-use building and mixed-use development, to include commercial school, conference center, banquet hall, gas station, hotels, things like that we're thinking about now in our residential area where we live. And we had spoke before, not to pick on marijuana grow facilities, but what is stopping something like that from going in this area here? It just seems like it is in an appropriate spot for this to happen. I understand that the South Gorham Crossroads District proposal is to aid in the east-west corridor, the development, but it seems like we're falling outside of this, and to open the floodgates here for development in this spot just seems like it isn't something that that is consistent with this area. So while we all understand that development is necessary and there are changes, just feel like this particular development is inappropriate for the area. And I also wanted to second Roger's comment on how we were notified of this, and it was Roger that actually notified many of us. So thankfully he's paying attention, he raised the flags. I just think that there should be a better system of letting us know when there's this major proposal that is suggested. So just wanted to say I'm in opposition of this rezoning. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Diana Kushnar, 14 Louise Street. I'm also in the neighborhood of that, and I just want to read, year after year we show up here to voice our opposition to the zoning changes you keep pushing through, and every time we stand up and speak, the narrative we get is that you have no choice but to approve the zoning change because the comprehensive plan tells you to. So I'm sure you must have all studied the comprehensive plan and what it has to say about the South Gorham Crossroad District. But before I quote that to you, let's go back in time and emphasize how important it is to be faithful to whatever the comprehensive plan has to say, specifically with regard to the Newton Drive neighborhood and surrounding areas. We go back to the first planning board meeting on June 6, 2022, the first public hearing on this area's proposed zone change to the urban expansion district. At that meeting, one of the planning board members told us the town is legally required to put into place the comprehensive plan. We're legally required to do what it says. At that same meeting, a member of the planning staff told us the time for everyone to provide comment is during the creation of the comprehensive plan. What we're doing now is implementing that plan. And now here with another rezoning proposal, which I assume you already researched, what the comprehensive plan has to offer for guidance and instruction. But for anyone present who doesn't know what it says, the description of the South Gorham Crossroads District reads as follows. The South Gorham Crossroads area includes land on both sides of South Street from the roundabout at the Bernard Rines Village bypass to the Stroudwater River and extending eastward to Brackett Road, excluding the area around the Shirley Lane and Newton Drive neighborhood. So if you're thinking of changing the boundaries of the South Gorham Crossroads District, please remember that the comprehensive plan's only option is to exclude the area around Shirley Lane and Newton Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing no one, the public hearing is closed.
Proposed Order 2460, order that the Town Council amend the zoning map to change map 8, Lot 10 from Urban Residential Expansion District to the South Gorham Crossroads District.
Is there a motion? Moved by Councilor Siegel. Is there a second? I'll second the item.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, and now we can have discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So some questions were raised about the process here. Are we able to confirm whether or not the process was followed? Yeah.
Good evening, Tom Porter, Director of Community Development. So we have a legal opinion. It basically, if there's commercial uses in that district, which residential has them, you don't need to do that extra notice. We have, the town attorney has weighed in on it multiple times. It's not the same uses. It has any commercial uses, and you're changing it to another district that has commercial uses. You don't have to do the additional notice. Per state law. Doesn't mean you don't. You could do it, but we have legal opinion that we meet state law.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Is there any reason we don't do the notice? Just
I would assume cost. There'd be a significant cost increase to notice every time that we do a rezone to every abutter. It'd be a significant increase in cost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The other thing I'd point out, and I've run into this over my career, is when you deviate from the state law, then it's very easy to point out that, well, for this process, you went above and beyond this other process that has a state law that also governs it. You follow the state law. So it's a slippery slope that you just have to watch out for. Doesn't mean that in the future the town couldn't send additional notices, but there's a lot of rules and guidelines for everything that we operate with. So there will be pushback one way or another, right, wrong, or indifferent, but I've run into that over the years.
Thank you.
Through you to Mr. Poirier, can you talk to what was mentioned about the comp plan?
What specifically, what portion?
Excluding the sentence, excluding Shirley Lane.
Yeah, well, I can just tell you the planning board reviewed the whole comp plan and then reviewed the proposed rezoning. And the council, when they sent it forward, the planning board found it consistent and recommended adoption of the zone change. So I think the council just needs to look at the recommendation of the planning board and then see if they find it consistent as well.
All right, and then with this, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No. Go ahead.
So water is going to be brought into the site with this, if this goes through, or is not going to be brought into the site?
This gets them to a density that would require them to extend water to the...
Would 100% bring water in?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor Sims.
Look, Chad, just kind of a process question here. I mean, we've had a few residents who've shown up here. They clearly have some input they want to share. Is there a process for us? Can we, if we were to table this item and give these people an opportunity to share more of their input, what would that look like? Is that something that that is done?
I think if we tabled it, it would just be to have another public hearing and another vote. So I think we'd hear I guess the same thing.
And it would conceivably allow the folks here and people listening to email us their input as well. If there's some specific concerns they have in particular, they could share those.
They could, but I think we've already seen this once. It went to the planning board. The planning board had a meeting on it and things like that. So now we're back to we're following the process on how to do this. I don't know, we can table it, I'm not saying we can't, but it's, I'm not sure what we're gonna, we could gain something, but.
Well, I mean, to the point of, we did the minimum because of cost restrictions. That said, we're here now, and people are becoming aware of it, so they have an opportunity to weigh in if they really want to. So something we could consider is to table it for a month. Give people an opportunity to share more input if they have some, and then consider that. I don't know.
Okay. Other comments? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. When it comes to extending the water that we're talking about, does that give the current residents of the area the option to get into public water?
So my understanding, and developers here, so they can probably speak to it more. So they went to the first planning board meeting, and their proposed duplex. At the meeting with the planning board, they heard significant comments from the abutters regarding poor water quality in the area. So came back and looked at what they would need for density to get public water to the neighborhood as well as to the development to alleviate that concern. They identified a density, and it was if the South Gorham Crossroads, which could meet that density, was done, then they could do the water extension. My understanding, if the zoning doesn't go forward, they will go back to the original density and just do wells.
Okay, understood. At the original density, will it still be senior housing? Or, sorry, 55 plus?
I believe both options have that, are doing that.
Okay. And then also, was this lot originally in the South Gorham Crossroads and then taken out and now being talked about being put back in, or am I remembering something else?
I believe it's moved in and out multiple times.
Okay. Thank you very much. To the rest of the council here, I would just say that, like, this feels like, every time there's any kind of development, people are against it. But then seeing a development that's not only going to bring public water to an area, which is something we desperately need, but also, senior housing, so zero impact on the schools. Besides it being in this spot near these people, this feels like a greater win for Gorham. We are in desperate need of senior housing and also extending water. And my big concern is if we push these kind of projects away because people say they don't want it near them, how are we ever going to get enough senior housing in this area built? Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Wilder-Cross.
I have a question about, I guess I don't have a big concern. I'd be very happy to see the water come in and to see senior development. What I don't want to see, though, are the gas stations and the other things that the folks are talking about as being possible in that area. And I think that it's an inappropriate place to put those kinds of businesses. It's a big difference from senior housing to a gas station.
So I think there are two things going on, and I think based on people's comments, the zone change in itself, by itself, without talking about the project that is being proposed, they have valid concerns because it would be changing, and that's why I think that you've seen this piece of property go in and out. It was taken out so it wouldn't be gas stations and so I think for the specific purpose of this actual project, I think it makes sense so that we can have this exact project happen. And in the way this is written, it doesn't explain the project. I guess we all know what's being proposed in there. And I agree with you that I would like to see this project happen if this is the way to do it and to get water down there. Like Councilor Siegel said, that's very important. I think it would fit in that area, but I agree that if it didn't turn into the senior housing project that they're planning, then I would not want to see at gas stations or anything like that. So that's something that I think that, the developers are here and the, project managers here if we have any questions about the project. But I want town staff to be very clear with us what happens when we change the zone and if the project doesn't go through. I guess that would be my question for Tom if he just went and sat down, but.
We could definitely let the council know that if the project does not move forward, and then come back and have a discussion what the council wants to do.
Okay, and that sounds, well, I'm thinking now that then we'd want to change it back, but to make it not a gas station.
Right.
And then the other thing you got to think of is that to me, if it's going to get a commercial use, is the gas station the best? That I don't think that's the concern at a dead end location. I mean, could it have a commercial use possibly? But I mean, gas station. There are other areas in the South Gorham Crossroads that definitely make sense for a gas station. I'm not sure. The end of Shirley Newton is it.
Okay.
But if it can be done, they might just go in and do it.
All right, is there any other comments or questions?
I'm also concerned every month we talk about being more business friendly. And we're also talking about here, we don't want the, businesses near people, but then if everyone's going to say that, where are the businesses going to go? How are we actually going to attract more businesses here? That's just, these are the struggles I think we're dealing with.
That's all
Well,
right.
just to that point, I think we need to, we're going to be updating our economic development strategy. I think we need to be asking ourselves, what kind of businesses are we wanting to attract to the town of Gorham? I think that's a really important question that we need to think about.
All right.
Chair, one last question through you to, I believe, maybe to the town manager. Can we add an amendment to this motion that making the zone change, and if this project does not happen, it kind of reverts on its own?
No. Thank you. I think my initial reaction, and then I see Tom's reaction, is we would not recommend that. That's not to say that the council can rezone parcels and bring them back and forth if it's consistent. So if the project didn't move forward for whatever reason, the council could put it back. But obviously this is a means to bring public water. But obviously there's concerns with the potential for the zone as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? One. All across.
Public hearing number 5 on item 2023-2-7. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposed amendment to the Land Use and Development Code that would create a village home occupation overlay district and amend home occupation standards. Administrator sponsored.
Public hearing number 5 is now open. If anyone wishes to speak on this item. Seeing none, I think people are just exiting, so the public hearing is closed.
Proposed order 2461. Order that the Town Council amend the Land Use and Development Code to create a village home occupation overlay district and amend home occupation standards as follows. Ordinance amendment is shown in black language and underlined below. Village home occupation overlay district boundaries are to follow the small dwelling overlay district boundaries. Section 215, home occupation standards. Home occupations in the village home occupation overlay district are allowed the following exceptions of the above requirements. The home occupations excluding medical marijuana caregivers shall not utilize more than 50% of the total floor area of the dwelling unit. Medical marijuana caregivers are required to meet the requirements outlined under Section 14E1-4 and under Section 15. Not more than 10 people outside the family shall be employed in the home occupation. The following uses shall be allowed as home occupations as defined in Chapter 1, Section 1-5, definitions. Retail stores under 500 square feet.
So moved. All right, motion by Wilder Cross, second by Councilor Siegel. All right, discussion on this item? Go ahead.
Sure. Madam Chair, did we notify any of the people in this area since we made the discussion about it in the past?
Town manager.
Thank you. This notification of the zone change was made consistent with past practices and also consistent with state law.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that since we had the same crisis of conscience for the last one, that we're also having the same crisis of conscience for this one, to remain consistent in notifications.
Any other discussion?
I'd just point out that this, we did a lot of back and forth on this one. I think staff did a good job of taking the input and putting forward a viable action. This is a much more targeted approach, and it's really, we talked about what kind of uses do we actually want to be able to permit. So we talked a lot about those kind of concerns that were just being raised. At the end of the day, we have to find ways to be able to get more of our residents to be able to access daily needs by walking or biking, or else our traffic is always going to keep increasing. There's no way around it. If you have to drive everywhere for everything, you're making more traffic. It's just math. So we've got to find ways to balance that with community, concerns. We're not, this does not allow smokestacks next to people's houses. Far from it. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Favor of this one. Because it is targeted, it is limited, it's much clearer. And so I'm not worried about this one.
Any other comments? Councilor
I'll
Beck?
just say what I say every time to this one.
Mhm.
We'll see it again in 6 months because we change it every 6 months now. So I think it's very well written, but it's always a moving ball. It's always going to be a moving ball. We're never going to catch it. And I think we're doing the best we can with it. It's just, we're never going to be able to nail this thing down for home occupation. Sorry, I'm not trying to be the negative Nell here,
Oh,
but
no.
it is what it is. So.
Well, and I think it's, like I said, we're going to do this economic development strategic plan, and then that's going to inform updates to the comprehensive plan. That's, unfortunately, we're not going to solve that in a week, but that work has to be done to fix some of this stuff that we keep bouncing around. Clearly, there's a problem because we keep bouncing around and changing things from one zone to another. So.
Any other comments, questions? Councilor Gannon?
Thank you. In all seriousness, I thought this was a decent plan to try to get started to repurpose some of the existing properties that are present there that may morph into businesses that could change the landscape of the area. I did make sure that there wasn't like a laundromat that could go in or other things. I think Councilor Siegel and Sims was entertained by my not wanting those in there. So we don't want to annoy the neighbors that are living there as this does kind of transition. So.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas.
Public hearing number 6 on item 2023-11-15. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposed amendment to the Land Use and Development Code that would replace one-lot private way standards with backlot standards. Administrative sponsor.
All right. Public hearing number 6 is now open. If you'd like to, come to the podium. And I see former Town Councilor Ben Hartwell. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Tonight I am here as Attorney Ben Hartwell representing Priscilla Irene Daigle Keskamethi from the Daigle family here in Gorham. I'm talking about the backlot item. So sometimes attorneys represent people that these kind of things that they're representing just the client, but I'm also here to really express my own view as a resident of Gorham and what I would do if I was still sitting up there. First of all, what is a backlot? A backlot is essentially a lot behind a lot with an easement across the lot that has the road frontage. We currently don't allow them in Gorham. Many communities do. To be able to do it, you'd have to create a private way built to the private way standard to create road frontage. I know that there's some concern about growth on this town council, and there's pushback from the community about certain forms of growth. But let's remember that Maine has a severe housing shortage. I don't know if anybody up here has tried to find an affordable place to live in Gorham. I've been trying to find a way to build something affordable in Gorham, and it's not easy. There was a report last year from Maine Housing that concluded that Maine needs up to 84,000 new housing units by 2030 to keep up with population growth. So the question shouldn't be, should you grow? It's how you should grow. And Gorham has an immense amount of infrastructure, physical infrastructure that we maintain. The 2016 comp plan says 162 miles of roads. But an item like this backlot item pushes us in that direction of utilizing, creating more housing, creating more places for people to live affordably, but doing it without creating new infrastructure, without creating new roads, sewer, and water. That's why this item's a step in the right direction. And I think it does it with some reasonable requirements for those backlot items. You have the text of the changes to the land use code in front of you. But this brings me to the situation. Irene over here, she's going to speak next. She wants to give. She lives over on Sebago Lake Road next to the Daigle Farm. On a piece of property that actually ironically used to be in my family that she now owns. And she has a couple horses there, and she wants to give a property, a lot to her daughter, who's also here tonight, so that she can build her home and start her family. But as of right now, you can't just have a backlot with an easement. You have to build the private way, and that requires a 50-foot easement for only a 12-foot wide road. And Irene's barn is just a few feet within the setback of when measured from the right-of-way. Now, I don't agree with the interpretation that you should be measuring it from the right-of-way, but that issue is going to be moot if this item passes. So, because you think about it, you got a 50-foot wide right-of-way. Only part of it is the road, but then so you got all this wasted space of, when you're measuring a setback. I'm not going to take a lot more time on this. I really hope you support it. We've been months and months trying to get to this point, talking about the potential for variances and what could be done, and this is the solution that we found, and I think it's going to help out a lot of other landowners here in Gorham and produce some of that needed housing and better utilize our existing infrastructure. So I think you'd probably rather hear from Irene and maybe Eva, so I'll hand it off to her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again, Ben.
So as Ben said, I am Irene Daigle Kexkmethy, and I live on Sebago Lake Road, and wonderfully, the Hartwell family allowed me to purchase that parcel of land, and it happens to be adjacent to the farm that I grew up on, which is like coming home for me. And there's been a lot of talk about business growth in Gorham, and I totally get it, but I'm from a generational farm family. And so my connection to the land and my commitment to it that's my legacy. And I'm lucky enough that my youngest child has inherited that from us. And so she wants to build in that back lot. And when I bought the land, I told all my children, if you want to build a house, there's the back pasture. fast forward 20 years, and I now realize that the front corner, not the whole building, just the front corner of the barn is inside that easement, or, you know, the easement. Very frustrating. And so I respectfully ask the council to pass this so that our legacy can continue and that my daughter can build her house and preserve that open land. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Susan Sato. I live at 14 Dragonfly Lane. I actually do have a backlot that came as the land around me got developed. There is a right of way. There's a private way that gives me my 200 feet of frontage with a hammerhead, and then there's a right of way, not a private way, a right of way that goes up my land on one side, 50 foot wide, 1,200 feet to the back lot behind me. And my concern with this, the way it's stated now, is it doesn't really make any provisions for the issue when someone else, a neighbor, owns the back land and I own the front land. Because the way I read this is my neighbor is now going to have easily access to sell that land or have that land developed, but there is no requirement of the person who builds on that land to improve the road or to change my driveway. So I will have all the increased traffic that goes 1,200 feet, practically a quarter mile, 200 feet up, 1,200 feet down, the long length of my property to get back there. And it's going to be up to me to pay for this road, to plow this road, to fill the potholes, which I do dutifully for myself. But I do, to back up a little bit, on the private way side, I did put this in to get road frontage for myself. It also made my other neighbor, their relative, made their house legal because it gave him 200 feet of frontage. The file in the town office for this gentleman, who's now deceased, is about that fat because the town took him to sued him back in the 80s. I don't know the whole story. But I did the investment. It made his house legal. But there is a road agreement. We do have an agreement for that part of the land, but in 15 years of living here, because they are people of either on disability or are destitute, they have paid $0 in terms of plowing or maintaining these roads. And there's a lot of traffic on these roads for other reasons that I've spoken to Ephraim about. There's a lot going on, and I think if you're going to do this, you need to add some language that requires a road agreement and possibly even a bond or some kind of permanent way that whoever owns that land will be financially obligated to help pay for the plowing and the maintenance of the road. If you're asking me to maintain a quarter mile of road just for goodwill because I'm a nice person or because it's not required by them so they can develop out back, that's not a fair ask for me. So it works for families. It clearly works for this fine woman and her family if you know the people behind you. But in my situation, it gets very uncomfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other people from the public want to speak on this item? Seeing no one, the public hearing's closed.
Proposed Order 2462, order that the Town Council amend the Land Use and Development Code to replace one private way standards with backlot standards as follows.
Council Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading due to the length.
Is there a second? Second by Councillor Sims. All those in favor? 7 yeas to waive the reading. And is there a motion on the item?
So moved.
Councillor Pratt, second by Councillor Wilder Cross. All right. Kind of sum up what this says. I mean, everybody's.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quickly, and Tom can wave angrily at me if I get something wrong. Essentially, this does, as mentioned during the public comments, allow for a backlot provision. So if you have a piece of property that meets the minimum requirements laid out in here, you could theoretically, under the terms of this, if passed, have one structure and accessory dwelling units and everything associated with it. as a back lot. This does not apply to existing non-conforming lots, if I read this correctly, but allows access for essentially a driveway where currently we require a private way and at least a 50-foot easement.
And so that back lot would be a separate lot and could be sold to someone else?
Yes.
And that person would have to maintain their driveway, just the driveway? Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Comments? All right. All those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024, 5-4, action regarding the June 11th, 2024 school budget validation election, administrator sponsored. Proposed order 2463, order that the town council authorize the town clerk to issue the warrant for the June 11th, 2024 school budget validation election. And be it further ordered that the polls will be open from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. And be it further ordered that the town council appoints the following persons for the designated voting districts, and if any of the following should fail to serve, the town council hereby authorizes the town clerk to appoint substitutes. District 1-1, Susan Emerson, Warden, Laurel Smith, Ward Clerk. District 1-2, Catherine Corbett, Warden, Marie Plummer, Ward Clerk. District 2, Carol Wyman, Warden, and Marty Towell, Ward Clerk. Central, Kim Getchell, Warden, Paula Nystrom, Ward Clerk. Be it further ordered that the Register of Voters be in session during the hours of 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 4th through Thursday, June 6th, and Monday, June 10th. And be it further ordered that the town clerk be authorized to process absentee ballots on Monday, June 10th at 10, 2, and June 11th at 10, 2, and 8.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Councilor LaVoy.
Second.
Second by Councilor Siegel. All right, any discussion other than thank you, Lori, and your election workers for doing these things twice a year?
Could I, through you to the town manager or the town clerk, how does someone request an absentee ballot, and is there early voting for this?
There is no early vote. Well, you can early vote, yes, in the town clerk's office. And once we get the ballots, which will be about the 13th. And you can request an absentee ballot now by going online to our website, and you'll go right through to the state website to get one, or calling the office.
Okay, so contact the town clerk or use the website for an absentee ballot, and early voting in the clerk's office?
Yep,
you say
starting
around
the week of the 13th, I think.
week of the 13th of May.
We
Okay,
get the
great.
ballot.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Are all those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024, 5-5, action to consider a resignation from the Board of Trustees, Baxter Memorial Library, administrator sponsored. Proposed order 2464, order that the town council accepts the resignation of David Fogg from the Board of Trustees, Baxter Memorial Library, and be it further ordered that the council thanks David for his many years of service on the board.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor Wilder Cross, second by Councilor Siegel. I would just like to personally say big thank you to David Fogg. I've worked on numerous projects with him on the Historical Society and things like that, and he's been a great asset to the library. So.
Ditto.
Any other comments? All right. All those in favor? 7 yeas.
2024, 5-6, action to consider an appointment for the Board of Trustees, Baxter Memorial Library, Appointments Committee sponsored. Proposed order 2465, order that the town council appoint Keith Potts to the Board of Trustees, Baxter Memorial Library, with his term to expire April 1st of 2025.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor LaVoy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Pratt. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas.
24, 5-7, action to consider accepting a resignation from the Gorham Economic Development Corporation, administrator sponsor. Proposed order 2466, ordered that the town council accepts the resignation of Ethan Johnson from the Gorham Economic Development Corporation, and be it further ordered that the council thanks Ethan for his many years of service on the GEDC.
Is there a motion? Moved by Councilor LaVoy. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Second by Councilor Wilder Cross. I would like to just say that Ethan Johnson is a valuable asset to that committee. He's involved in a lot of things. I work closely with him on the business exchange, and he has great ideas, so it's sad to see him go, but he does have a lot of family things, basketball and stuff going on, so it's totally understandable. So, any other discussion?
We'll miss him.
Yep, thank you, Ethan.
Yeah, the same. And it's been a pleasure serving with him on the GEDC when I could go to those meetings. So.
Yep. All
He
right.
will be missed.
All those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024-5-8, action to consider amending the fire suppression system ordinance, Councilor Pratt sponsored. Proposed Order 2467, order that the Town Council instructs the Ordinance Committee to review the fire suppression system ordinance for the viability of removing sprinkler requirements for single-family home structures in less proximity to other dwellings on neighboring properties, and to report back to the Town Council with their recommendations.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor Pratt. Is there a second? By Councilor Sims. All right.
Me?
Yeah.
All right. I'll keep it short and sweet because I am roasting here. All right.
Fire suppression.
I know, right? Yeah, turn them on.
Just throw some
So this
water.
is exactly what it sounds like is for single-family homes with a certain distance in between to be determined by the ordinance committee. I don't believe that they should have to be sprinkled, basically. I think that should be a personal decision of the homeowner at that point of if you have ample room between the houses, then there's no reason to have a sprinkler system. If your houses are 10 feet apart from each other, they still need to be sprinkled as far as I'm concerned. But for somebody that's, I'll throw out my example, right? I'm not sprinkled because I built before the ordinance, but if I built after that ordinance, I have no one around me. It should be my personal choice whether I want to sprinkle or not at that point, in my opinion. So that's why I'm sponsoring this. Obviously, it's going to ordinance for review, everything else. It'll come back and we can talk about it more, but this is getting the ball rolling, in my opinion, basically.
Thank you. Councilor Sims.
Yeah, I just like to, I support it. The ordinance is, it's adding tens of thousands of dollars to the costs of new housing construction. And the costs are so prohibitive that many existing units in and around our village that could provide for some more diverse housing options are instead sitting vacant. So we can change that if we can improve this ordinance. Multiple builders have brought to my attention the fact that Gorham's current standards in this ordinance are far in excess of state and federal standards, but no one seems to understand exactly why. And I totally recognize the importance of fire safety. We have to manage those concerns responsibly and within reason. But I think that it's possible for us to revisit this ordinance and consider ways that we might be able to responsibly address building costs while still taking appropriate consideration of all state and national standards for fire safety measures. So I'd like to propose propose an amendment to this motion. And this can be, it can be kind of a separate track from what Councilor Pratt has wisely proposed, or however people are comfortable with arranging it. But I'd propose that we also instruct the ordinance committee to investigate the discrepancies between Gorham's ordinance and national and state standards, and how we might responsibly revise this ordinance to mitigate high costs, particularly for mixed-use construction, while adhering to all state and national standards.
I would suggest, only because I think he's talking about residential, and I think you've added a commercial component to it.
Yep.
I think because those are two separate things, I think we need to look at those separately, or would you, I mean, I guess I'm gonna ask the town manager, I mean, I think that should be a separate topic, because, I mean, I don't know that the council, you might wanna, do something about residential and not about commercial. That's just a whole nother topic, that maybe we should revisit in a separate item, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay.
Just bring it next month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have it more fleshed out. Yeah.
All right. Councilor Siegel.
Thank you, Chair.
Motion fails. Yeah.
Similarly, I want to.
Motion fails.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody seconded his motion, I just.
Thank you. For the record.
Yeah, he's.
I'm just curious, because sometimes motions that get this specific like this end up tying our hands when we see other things in the fire suppression ordinance, and this might go with what Councilor Sims is saying. But I'm wondering, Councilor Pratt, this is your motion, how you would feel about it just ending at the word requirements. So just the town council instructs the ordinance committee to review the fire suppression systems ordinance for the viability of removing sprinkler requirements.
No, and here's why. What I'm looking at is just a single-family home piece of it. I don't want to get into the minutia of townhouses. So it's not fair if I live next door to you and I decide to light my house on fire to put your child in danger at that point, in my opinion. I want to look at the single-family home piece by itself at this point with space requirements and just start there, basically. And yes, it might start the ball, it might be like the home occupation thing I spoke about earlier, where we look at it every 6 months. But to start, I think we really need to focus on just the space standard with single-family houses.
Okay, got it.
I appreciate it, though. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Gannon?
Madam Chair, thank you. I support the review of this, and I think it's appropriate that we look at 1 half-acre and 1-acre lots. Thank you.
Councilor Wilder Cross, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. All right. All those in favor of the item? 7 yeas.
Item 2024, 5-9, action to consider bundling building permit fees and associated fees. Councilor Pratt, sponsor. Proposed Order 2468, order that the Town Council forwards to the Finance Committee for review and recommendation, bundling permit fees in a manner that is more consistent with other municipalities and/or easier for permit applications.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Lavoy.
All right, I'll keep this real short and sweet. So I want to look at building permits, and for instance would be our electrical permit. When we pull it, they ask how many receptacles you're replacing. Why not just charge like a $35 fee for that at this point, instead of having to list that you're replacing 25 receptacles? The code officer doesn't count how many receptacles you're replacing, so let's just make it simple, right? And then I want to look at how other municipalities are also doing their permits, because I think we could really streamline the process without losing too much in the process either. I think it would just be a very good way to streamline our process at this point and actually make it easier on code and the people that are going into code. So that's the reason I sponsored this, and I just want to make sure we're consistent with the state standards too on permitting and fees. So, yep. And see, I sent it to finance, not to ordinance, so I don't send everything to ordinance. You're welcome.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Discussion on the item? All right. Seeing none. All those in favor? 7 yeas.
Good idea.
Item 2024, 5-10, action to consider the appointment of an Open Space and Trail Master Plan Steering Committee. Proposed Order 2469, order that the Town Council appoint members to an Open Space and Trail Master Plan Steering Committee as follows. 1 member from the Planning Board, Jim Hager. 1 member from Gorham Conservation Commission, Ernie Wells. 1 member of the public, Charlie Springer. 1 member of the agricultural community, Jen Grant. And be it further ordered that the Town Council appoints a counselor to represent the committee. We don't know which one.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to amend it to add someone's name in here. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor Wilder Cross.
Second.
Second by Councilor Pratt. All right, this is basically exactly what it says it is, and if anyone would like to make a nomination for
I'd
someone.
like to nominate Rob.
Okay.
Lavoy.
Is there a second for that? Would you like to?
I'll second.
All right. Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment to add, assuming you want to do it.
I'll accept.
Okay, sorry, I just put you in there, didn't even ask. So, all right, all those in favor of amending the order to add Councilor Lavoy's name in there? All right, 7 yeas. Any discussion on the rest of the item?
Thank you, Rob.
All right, item is amended. All those in favor? All right, 7 yeas.
Item 2024, 5-11, action to consider defining greenhouses and hoop houses in Land Use and Development Code. Councilor Siegel sponsored. Proposed Order 2470, order that the Town Council forwards to the Ordinance Committee for review and recommendation, amending the Land Use and Development Code to better define greenhouses and hoop houses.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion here.
All right, second? Second by Councilor Lavoy. All right, go ahead, Councilor Siegel.
This one's pretty simple. We don't define greenhouses or hoop houses. They're not permanent structures. They're not temporary structures. They're really weird. And right now, it requires someone trying to put in a greenhouse to have to do a lot more work than they should for what is not a permanent structure. And this was actually one of the recommendations of Maine Farmland Trust from their presentation, if you recall, as well. So I figure we should actually define, if we define a greenhouse and a hoop house, currently they're required stamped engineered drawings to get a greenhouse, which seems a bit over the top. So We just got to define it so it's clear what town staff need to do when it comes to greenhouses.
Thank you. I agree that as long as we define it, it should be easier. We've been talking about making things easier for people to farm their land and grow things on their land, so I think this follows up with that. Thank you for bringing this forward. Yeah. Any comments, questions? Go ahead.
So, Madam Chair, for greenhouses, this is for residential small greenhouses. Is this also for commercial as well?
It would depend on, I mean, it's for either, because just to define it in the language, we don't have a definition. So it falls under any, if you built a garage, it falls under, and Tom can speak to this, but I think, the Maine Farmland Trust and the state of Maine define it as something different than we do.
Like it'd have to be part of the definition, right?
Well,
It's
that's what I'm
commercial,
saying, yeah.
right, versus residential.
So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. So it's not that we don't define greenhouses or hoop houses. When you look at our definition of a structure, whether it's permanent or temporary, it meets the definition of a structure, so it has to meet a setback. The issue with the greenhouses, it wasn't town ordinance, it was state law's requirement for building codes, did not have an exemption for agricultural buildings, hoop house and greenhouses for the growing of agricultural products. They have since corrected that, and it doesn't require engineered stamp plans anymore. So that was an old state law. We kept trying to get in touch with the state fire marshal's office to allow us to release it and not meet those codes, but that was what was holding it up. It had nothing to do with our land use code or anything. It was state law. So the legislature has since corrected that. I'm not quite, they're kind of in rulemaking right now to see how that's going to work out, or what standards they do need to meet if you have people in them. But it was more of a fire marshal's building code issue, not a ordinance issue and a definition issue.
Got it.
I still had, through you to the town manager, are greenhouses considered taxable structures, like sheds?
Thank you. I don't know. Can find out. I suspect it would depend very much on the structure. If it's a very permanent, very commercialized structure versus a temporary, seasonal thing that's thrown up, but we can find out. I'm not sure.
You.
Any other comments, questions? All right. All those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024, 5-12, action to consider a proclamation declaring the month of May as Bike Month in the town of Gorham, Councilor Sims sponsored. Proposed Order 2471, order that the town council adopts the following proclamation. Whereas throughout the month of May, Gorham residents are encouraged to celebrate biking and the freedom, joy, and well-being it imbues within us, as well as power that more people riding bikes has in making life better for everyone in our community. And whereas May 13th to the 19th, 2024 is Bike to Work Week, and Friday, May 17th, 2024 is Bike to Work Day. And whereas throughout the month of May, the residents of Gorham and its visitors will experience the joys of bicycling through group rides, trail rides, commuting rides, and simply getting out and going somewhere by bike. And whereas bicycling has been shown to improve citizens' health, well-being, and the quality of life, while also mitigating car pollution and traffic congestion, and whereas bicycling has been shown to attract tourism dollars and increase spending at local businesses. And whereas Gorham schools, town staff, local businesses, and civic groups are encouraged to promote the use of the bicycle as both a means of transportation and recreation, year-round, to attract more residents and visitors to enjoy our local parks and trail systems, as well as our restaurants, retail establishments, and local attractions. And whereas Gorham aspires to collaborate with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine and other civic groups to promote greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety education during Bike Month and year-round, in an effort to reduce collisions, injuries, and fatalities, and improve public health and safety for everyone on the road. Now, therefore, Gorham Town Council does hereby proclaim May 2024 as Bike Month here in Gorham. We welcome all residents to join us in observance.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor Sims, second by Councilor Lavoy. I'm not even going to look up. I know whose hand is up right now. Okay, any discussion? Thank you for bringing this forward, Councilor Sims. But
Well done.
Thank you. And Motorcycle Safety Month, too.
yes,
There
yep.
you
All right, all those in favor?
I would also
sorry.
no, it's okay. I would just like to, say to everybody, the public and the council here, just you need, road stress from one car is equal to 160,000 bike trips. So every single person who bikes instead of driving ends up saving us money because our roads don't get as damaged, and we know we have a huge backlog of roads to fix. So bike to work, bike to school, bike all over town.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a very healthy amount of people that enjoy biking either on the road or trails or wherever. I have noticed that there's been more parking, though, in the area for people that are bringing their bikes with their friends, like commuting together, and going as groups, but they're leaving either from the high school parking lot, the municipal parking lot, the USM, and so forth. It does create a little bit of a parking issue in that respect, so it's something that I think we have to add into our discussions for when we look at busing and other ulterior motives of transportation. So even though it solves one problem, it creates another problem, and so we have to be aware. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024-5-13, action to consider authorizing staff to implement certain bicycle awareness safety measures in Gorham Village, Council Sims sponsored. Proposed order 2472, order that the town council authorize staff to install pavement marking sharrows, bicycle road sharing signage, and install small bicycle racks on public property in the Gorham Village to the extent practical and financially feasible according to the bicycle and pedestrian plan for Gorham Village.
A motion, Councilor Sims, second by Councilor LaVoy. All right. I don't know if you want to discuss this or the town manager, but
I had a few comments, but
Okay.
if you wanted to, do you want to give a quick summary of what you guys are planning to do, or?
Sure, thank you. We asked and kind of worked in conjunction on this item. So we had the town engineer look at the village without total redesigns of some really tight, narrow parts of Main Street, South Street, School Street, and State Street. There's width issues for bike lanes. So the sharrows is kind of just a stopgap measure. It's kind of bicycle awareness, share the road. It's debatable whether it works, but it's an awareness factor. The other component would be, we had a great debate at the ordinance committee level as to where the bike racks were. We all were confused as to if there was one at the bus stop, and actually there is one at the bus stop. One. So there's some low-hanging fruit, some signs.
And I used it the next day.
And we caught a picture of Councilor Sims with his bike there. So there's some low-hanging fruit that we can do in this area. It would come within existing funding within the town. It would not be a massive lift for us by any means. But again, slowly implementing parts of our plans and taking little bites of the apple.
Right. Yeah, I have a few comments here. I'll try to keep it brief for all the people still with us here at 9:02. When I ran for council last fall, I didn't realize that I was going to become a biking and walking safety advocate. But after a year of researching community development with a particular focus on economic development, I've come to the conclusion that if Gorham wants to see more productive growth that we can comfortably live with, we have to prioritize safety for our people on our streets, particularly in and around our village centers. Most of us agree that Gorham would benefit from more businesses to add to our top property tax base, and we need to recognize the fact that businesses generally tend to locate where there are viable market opportunities, and that means people. I've talked to small business owners in the village, and they want more business. They want more people. The commuter traffic that flows out to Standish and Buxton and beyond, most of those folks aren't stopping at our local businesses frequently. We need to create a village that is less focused on car traffic and more focused on humans, and thus safer for all of our residents. While some may raise concerns about the potential costs of these safety measures, I point to evidence from communities across the nation and world that there's a very tangible return on investment here in terms of improved public health and safety for our residents, as well as economic development in the form of increased commerce for village businesses, which also attracts new investment to those areas. And the state, one of our residents that spoke tonight, wrote to our attention that the state will help subsidize the cost for some of these safety improvements. And as Councilor Siegel noted, we were comparing infrastructure costs. You can fit 10 bikes in a parking spot for one car, and that geometry applies across all of our infrastructure. And I'd like to point to the excellent example of the Epic Trail Network. The off-road biking, mountain bikers come from all over New England to ride our bike trails. And it illustrates the fact that when you provide a safe and effective infrastructure for bikers and walkers, people are quite likely to bike and walk more frequently in those areas. And so I respectfully urge my fellow councilors to join me in supporting these fiscally responsible improvements to public safety for our residents. Thank you.
Question for the town manager. Is there, and I know there's constraints on where you can put these bike racks, is there a way the town can work with commercial property owners in the village to pay for the cost of the bike rack? Like, I mean, coming to mind is Mr. Bagel, the lawn area. There's quite a bit of space there. That would be a good spot. Some of John Smith's properties. Is there a way, or is that just, it has to be on town land?
I think there's, thank you, there's definitely a way. It's not to say that we would buy them for every private business, but I think a collaborative effort, maybe the business buys it, we find an installer, maybe we can find some grants for them. So it's the right-of-way width in a lot of areas doesn't allow for them everywhere in Gorham. So we definitely will need the help of private business, especially some of the businesses that get a lot of foot traffic and could get a lot more bicycle traffic, really, when you think about it. So
yeah, urge you to look into that.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024, 5-14, action to consider setting a town council workshop in July to discuss the Great Maine Neighborhoods Initiative. Councilor Wilders Cross sponsored. Proposed order 2473, order that the town council designates July 16th, 2024 as a workshop to discuss Greater Portland Council of Governments Great Maine Neighborhoods Initiative.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor Wilder Cross. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Siegel.
I sort of spoke about this earlier, but there's a wonderful presentation. There's a wonderful resource that we really need to learn how to use it and see how it would work, especially where we're talking about setting a policy. I think the timing was perfect for this. So I'd like to have the council hear from them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right. All those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024, 5-15, action to consider accepting Sear Drive as a public way. Councilor Phillips sponsored. Proposed order 2474, order that the town council accepts the entirety of the Sear Drive extension at 220,000 feet to map 29, lot 20, as shown on the approved subdivision plan for the Gorham Industrial Park West Campus, and be it further ordered that the public right-of-way be designated an industrial commercial public road.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilor Lavoy. Is there a second? Councilor Pratt? All right, this is exactly what it says. We just need to accept the Industrial Park Road, even the extension that isn't quite finished, and so we're just doing it ahead of time.
It's technically town land, right? So this is kind of a
You came to the same conclusion we did.
Yeah, okay.
So the reason the council's acting on this, real briefly, is the Water District had a hang-up that it was not public land and not a town-owned property, and was holding up construction. So we all thought the same thing. This just formally adopts the road on paper to satisfy the Portland Water District.
Chair, through to the town manager. So to be very clear, we are not accepting a private road here. This is a public road that we need to publicly accept for weird bureaucratic reasons.
To be clear, this is a industrial park road under construction by the town of Gorham, about halfway done at this point. Well, probably 3/4 of the way done at this point. There's quite a bit of progress out there, and will be a town road and always was conceived as a town road.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? 7 yeas. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, Councilor Pratt is melting, so is Councilor Sims. All right. All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
Oh, please.
Yep, let's go.